this is a model that you're not going to share with other people. Okay? This is a model that you're not going to put names in boxes or anything like that. And yes, we're using words like players and terrorists because they're emotive words and you will remember them when they go, okay? So, here we go. What we've got is 4 boxes, okay? On this side of the force here, we've got people that are bought in, so good attitude. These 2 boxes, good attitude, so player mentality, if you like. On this side, bad attitude, okay? So more terrorist-like behaviour. Across the top, you've got people with high confidence and high self-belief. And across the bottom, you've got people with low self-belief, maybe low motivation as well. Okay, so this is the actual, it's called the 4 types of people, this model, but this is where you'll see them. So, in the top box here, okay, so if you're into Star Wars, this is like the good side of the Force, this is the dark side of the Force, okay? So like Jedis and like Vaders over here, okay? If you're not into Star Wars, you don't know what I'm talking about. So let's crack on, shall we? So in this top right-hand box that you've got here, this top right-hand box, we've got people that are bought in, so in other words, good attitude, positive mental attitude here, high confidence in their own ability, okay, and highly motivated to do a good job. So these are the people, as you probably guessed, we call organisational players, okay? These are the people that come in, work hard every day, do the job. If you had a rowing boat, the player would be at the front of the boat rowing towards the goal, okay? So I'm pretty sure I've got a group full of 33 players, okay? I'm pretty sure I've got a group full of that many people. Let's just have a quick look. Yeah, I'm pretty sure on there, you're all players. Fantastic, happy days. Yeah, you can tell me different later, right? So, players can do, will try, good people, all right? We don't need to say anything more about these people. They're not yes men and women, no, but they don't just nod aimlessly and take orders. They will challenge things if they believe that they need to challenge things, but they'll challenge them in the right way. Excuse me, in the right way, okay? So, players. Then we come down to this box here. So in this bottom box here, what we've got is still people that are bought in, so good attitude. This time lower self-belief, maybe lower motivation, but it's normally confidence. We call these people the organisational spectators. Now I mentioned them earlier. Spectators are good people, but they don't necessarily, they're not right at the front of the queue. Okay, their confidence level is a little bit low. If you are a leader on this course and you think you've got one of these in your team, if you help them with their confidence, then you could well get them into the player box. You could move them up, okay? But these people, good people, come in, they'll try hard, they won't be at the front of the queue like a player, but in the rowing boat, the player is rowing towards the goal and the spectator is helping when he needs to, okay? So, good people, if your team, if you have the foundation of a team with these 2 types of people in it, then with some work, you can create a high-performing team on the back of it, okay? Which is all good, right? Then we've got the dark side of the force over here, okay? So we've got people that are not bought in. But before we come up and deal with the terrorists, which we know here, let's come down here. So this is somebody I've not mentioned yet. So down here in this corner, what we've got is somebody that's not bought in, so bad attitude, low confidence and low motivation. Okay, so in other words, not bothered, right? We call these people the organisational corpses. Okay, now I know if you haven't heard this, me do this before, some of you have just chuckled to yourself now. So what is a corpse in a business? An organisational corpse is somebody that's disengaged, not bothered, haunt your corridors, these people. These are the people that retired a couple of years ago and didn't tell anybody else. Okay, so you know they're just disengaged, but they don't cause you a lot of trouble because they're not even that bothered. They're just kind of a little bit miserable on their own. Does that make sense? In the rowing boat, the players at the front rowing towards the goal, spectators helping him when he needs it, The corpse either doesn't know why he's in the boat, yes, or isn't bothered. In other words, dead weight. So now what you've got is you've got a player rowing towards the goal. You've got a spectator that's helping him, but now the boat's a bit heavier because you've got somebody in there that's disengaged, that's not bothered, okay? So we need to re-engage these people, otherwise they make your journey they make your journey a lot more difficult to make, okay? And then finally, we've got this box up here, which is the box we've been talking about since we started, really, isn't it? Which is people that are not bought in, so bad attitude, okay? Highly confident, though, in their own ability, and highly motivated for their own end. Not the team end or the business end, for their own end. We call these people the organisational terrorists, okay? And that's the word that we've been using. And I'm going to explain why I'm using the words player and terrorist in a moment, okay, where they came from for you, right? But an organisational terrorist, they spend 75% of their time doing just enough not to get into trouble. So you won't get them on skill because they're clever, okay? So they'll spend 75% of their time doing just enough not to get into trouble, and then spend the other 25% of their time recruiting these two poor people into their fold. Now, these people are quite influential along with these people. So players and terrorists are both quite influential people in an organisation. Spectators and corpses are more followers. So whoever's the most influential, potentially, they're going to follow them. So this is why it's really, really important that we deal with terrorist-like behaviour. First of all, we know where it comes from. It comes from change, doesn't it? It comes from moving up the wrong side of the tree, getting stuck in the rut, all the type of stuff that we talked about so far today. So as leaders, and as people and colleagues in a business, we need to try and fix this. So you imagine a memo comes out. The memo says you're going on a solution-focused thinking skills course. That's what the memo says, okay? The player gets the memo, reads the memo, and says, oh, this is great, some development, that's brilliant. I'm going to go and check the website, see if there's any free work. Fantastic, tick the box, right? And the reason why I think the majority of you guys must be players is because you've come on today, you are learning, you are educating yourself, yeah, you're finding out more. That's what players do. Yeah, they learn, they play. I know I said it a bit tongue-in-cheek earlier on, yeah? But you learn, and that's what players do. They learn and adapt, okay? So, a player's gone. They're ready for the course. Spectator gets the memo. I'll see you there in the morning. They'll turn up, okay? Corpse doesn't know what memo you're on about, right? Or they're not bothered, okay? The terrorist gets the memo, okay? And the terrorist gets the memo. He puts one arm around the spectator, one arm around the corpse, and says, let me tell you what this course is really about. They're sending us on a solution-focused thinking skills course, so what they're saying is we're thick, and we need development, and we can't think, and we've been here 10 years doing it the way we've been doing it. It's all been rubbish. These two people, a little bit lower confidence, are going, yeah, he might have a point. And all of a sudden, you've got a little den of moaners that starts to spread. Now, a terrorist won't take on a player, because a player's likely to tell him to go and, jump. Yeah, don't bother me because I'm busy. But these two people can be influenced by them. So we've got to stop the terrorist-like behaviour. So this is why I started out with the question today. And we looked at those two very different slides on the negative impact of COVID and then the positive impact of COVID, and which one did you do? Did you do them both? Did you do a bit of the bad stuff first? I did. And then you moved into that player box. We all know there are people still stuck in that terrorist stuff, don't we? We all know people are still whinging and moaning. People are still telling us how bad it is. People are still telling us it could be worse. Players are saying it could be worse, but terrorists are still going, oh, it's going to go on for another 12 months. It's going to go, yeah, and so on. And now, I heard my first moan yesterday about Brexit. It's the first time I've heard a moan since lockdown in March, but it's starting to come back in because now we're starting to deal with COVID. Yeah, now we're starting to deal with COVID. Terrorists need something else to moan about. something else to grab on and start whinging about, yeah? And I heard my first whinge about Brexit again yesterday. Can you imagine all the people that would have been whinging if COVID wasn't here this year about Brexit? Quite interestingly, they haven't been moaning about Brexit, have they? Because there's been something bigger to moan about, yeah? So, just bear that in mind. So, if you don't deal with this type of behaviour in an organisation or a team, your players either leave or turn into terrorists. Depends on how strong your player is. A strong player will leave and go, I'm going to be valued somewhere else. A borderline player might go, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And that, you could argue whether they're a player at all at that point. Okay? So we know we've got to deal with them. The key question is, how do you deal with terrorists in an organisation? So, I'm going to ask you that question. So go to the chat box. Everybody go to your chat box right now. Okay? If you've got one of these in a business or a team, you can't not deal with them because they will influence other people in the organisation. So, how do you deal with a terrorist or terrorist-like behaviour in an organisation? That's the question. What do you think? Go to the chat box and tell me what you think. How do you deal with these types of people? Let's see what we get back. There's nothing yet. Two people afraid to actually write anything. I don't know, I'm hoping the chat is still working. Yeah, the chat was working this morning, yeah. Anybody? Ah, there we go. Thank you, Pete. Pete, you put both in for me, haven't you? I like it. It's still working, thank you. Nobody wanted to answer the question. Thank you very much, Pete. The first point of call is if you've got people that, is that what you were thinking, Christian, as well? If you've got people that are behaving this way, yeah, you need to deal with them, okay? Marina's put challenge them, yeah? So, if you need to, if you've got people that are doing like, that are behaving in a terrorist-like way, the first thing we need to do, and as you can see there, Pete said convert them, Marina has said challenge them. The first thing you need to do is try and repair whatever broke. So that we call it a broken psychological contract. When somebody goes through change and they get stuck in that rut there, yeah? Christine's put isolate them. I'll come back to that in a point. Christine's put engage them. So your first legal and moral thing to do, if you've got somebody that's generating this behaviour, is to actually try and work out what's wrong and help them get them back into this box. Okay? So the first point of call is to try and get people from here back over here. Because I'll guarantee you, the people that are currently terrorists in your organisation won't have come in like terrorists. More to the point, they might be terrorists more because of COVID, yeah? So your first point of call is to find out what's keeping them at the bottom of that rut. What's the pain and how can you help them? Because if you can get them up that transition curve to the top, they will move back into the player box. That is your best way of dealing with these people. And if you do get them over into the player box, their followers, they come with them as well, okay? If that doesn't work, as Pete rightly said, well, change them or change them. Okay? But you don't particularly want them in the organisation. This is a last resort, in my opinion. Okay? Removing them from your team or business is the last resort, and I'm sure you've got HR functionality that can help you. But the first thing is this, and I find maybe 90% of the time, actually, if you can really find out what's wrong with these people and help them, they move back into this box. It's not very often that we have to do this thing, but of course it is a final option. Now somebody else said, Christian said, isolate them as well, and put terrorists with players, Michael said. Yes, that's a short-term fix, okay? So you can either isolate them or surround them with players. It's like man marking them on a pitch, isn't it? Yeah. If you're playing football and Lionel Messi is in the team opposite you, you don't put one defender on him. Yeah, you put 5 defenders or 11, 11 defenders on him. Yeah. The point I'm making is, yes, you can box them in with players, but make sure they're strong players. But also, it's a short-term measure. What you really want to do is find the root cause. Hence the tree. Find the root cause, if you remember the tree model that we did, what's causing the terrorist-like behaviour. And I know that you're all thinking of other people right now, but as we started this session 50 odd minutes ago, I said that I'd done a bit of the terrorist stuff and then got the player stuff right when COVID came along. We can sometimes all be in these boxes. So I know it's easy to think of other people, but the whole point of this session, if you remember, the title was COVID, as it made us organisational players or organisational terrorists. So now I'd like you to think about yourself. When do you flip between boxes? I make a really good player. And that's not me being big-headed. I make a really good player. But that means also, when my attitude isn't right, I can make a really good terrorist as well. And terrorism doesn't have to be big, it can be small. It can be a sarcastic comment. It can be a wink. It can be asking a question in a meeting, not to get an answer, but to make a point. Okay? It can be turning up late. It can be not being online when you're supposed to be online. Yeah, in today's new world, for argument's sake. It can be having your do not disturb on, you know, just purposely because you don't want other people to know what you're doing and stuff like that. That's all that kind of stuff, yeah? So, the question is, which box are you in? Which box are you going to be in going forward? Which box do you want to be in? Well, you know, your business wants you to be here because that's what we generally promise when we got the job, by the way. When we sit in an interview, we normally tell people we're these. So we don't tell them that we're going to be these sometimes, and we certainly don't tell them we're going to do this sometimes. We normally tell them we're going to do these. So we kind of owe it to the organisation. And I know COVID has been hard, and I know it's been very, very difficult for a lot of people. I mean, fatal, hasn't it, for a lot of people. And I'm not saying don't grieve, and I'm not saying don't go through that transition curve, because that's a natural thing that we've got to do. But at some point it's a choice. Do we keep moaning? Do we keep this going along for the next 12 months, 2 years? Will there be people still whinging about it 3 years ago, going, oh, do you know what, we could have done that if it wasn't for... The point is, we can make a choice, can't we?